Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulullah mabah. In the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, indeed, all praise and gratitude be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As such, we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to send his peace and blessing upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, of his entire family, his noble companion, and those who follow him in his footsteps to the day of Jannah Mabah. Brothers, this is a post debate between myself and Habib that we just had, but there were some technical issues which disconnected my live debate with him. So we just want to highlight some of the things that he mentions and some of the points that he said to just give an overview of what happened in the debate. So today we'll be joining with me, brother Zach. Welcome, brother. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Thank you very much. Yeah, so I watched the debate. I mean, I was there for the entire thing, even after, what we'll talk about. So,
yeah, alhamdulillah. So the debate really, I think it went well. From the beginning, I laid out my arguments and I asked from the Qur'an to support my points. And from his debate, from his perspective, he didn't really address anything that I said. He didn't really address the ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah 143 to 144. On Surah Baqarah chapter 2, 187, he did address none of those things, which explicitly shows that the Prophet and they receive and follow command. That's not in the Quran. So those were the points that I was trying to highlight to him, that the Prophet and they receive revelations. And when his part started, he actually agreed. He agreed, yes, the Prophet did receive revelation outside of the Quran, which I allude to, but those wasn't for mankind. Like he mentioned, he corrected me in the rebuttal, that wasn't for mankind. So one of the implications of that is that the Prophet ﷺ received something, he didn't convey the whole thing to all mankind. Him being a messenger to all mankind. It wouldn't really make no sense to say that he received a revelation and hide it from us. Knowing that Allah says in Surah Al-Ma'idah that, O Prophet, proclaim what has been revealed to you. It doesn't specifically say proclaim the Quran. He said proclaim what has been revealed to you. So if I already shown that the Prophet received different revelations, of course he conveyed it to mankind, because from the same ayah the Muslim were following him. If he didn't convey it, they wouldn't know about it and they wouldn't be following it. So his argument doesn't really line up. Do you have any comment on that perspective?
Well, yeah, I mean, you started on and you gave a good presentation for the first 20 minutes, and then he also went on. I mean, his first 15 minutes of the 20 minutes on his part were basically recitations of a lot of different ayats without any commentary. And then the last 5 minutes, yeah, it was strange, because I had a discussion with him previously, well before this debate, and he did admit to unrecited revelation. And he said the same comment that he said to you, that, there was this unrecited revelation, or what we call wahi ghayri matlu, but it wasn't for all of mankind. I mean, which, I didn't push it any further at that time, because he had just admitted that. And by admitting that, you won the debate. I mean, that's just, there. Because that was the topic of the debate. It wasn't, is it for mankind? It wasn't Bukhari. None of those things were, the topic of the debate. So in that sense, I felt that you already won it. And then you could go further with that, and what does that entail? But,
that's a different discussion. Yeah, absolutely. So really, he didn't really address my main arguments from the Quran. And the main thing he really was basically preaching. That's what I felt that he was doing, just preaching this ayah, preaching this ayah, preaching this ayah. And I explicitly told him that the way to destroy my argument is to show me one single ayah where Allah said he revealed the Quran only, or he didn't reveal anything except the Quran. And he didn't show me any of that. All the ayah that he showed me, he says, Allah revealed this ayah, Allah revealed this ayah, Allah revealed the Quran, Allah revealed the Quran. And I give it an example. If I have two sons and I talk about one son, that doesn't negate the fact that I don't have a second son. In order for you to say I don't have a second son, you need to show that he doesn't exist, which he couldn't really prove. So he just going on preaching mode and basically personally attacking me that I have a deviancy in my heart, rather than addressing my main arguments and strawmanning my argument, saying that I'm appealing to something outside of the Quran, knowing fully well that I didn't even mention Bukhari, I didn't even mention Hadith, except in Surah Dhariyat, chapter 66, verses 3, where Allah mentioned specific Hadith in regard to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, which basically debunks his position that the Quran is the only Hadith. But why is Allah attributing Hadith to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam if the Quran is the only Hadith? From the very Quran that, he's saying that it is supporting his claim. So those are some of the things. I really wanted to get into specific things, specific ayah that he quoted, where he talk about one of the things that he mentions, that the Quran guide, that Quran is a verse of guidance. All of those is good, which I agree, I absolutely agree with. But that's only half understanding, because there's other hadith, there's other ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said the Prophet guide to the straight path. Like Surah Ashura, chapter 42, verse 52, where Allah specifically said the Prophet guides to the straight path. So why are you taking one ayat over the other and ignoring the other part of the ayat? So you need to put both of them together. I just wanted to highlight that part, but I didn't get a chance to show it to him that you're taking one ayat, but you're ignoring the other part. So to put it together so we can have a holistic understanding. But I didn't get a chance to do that. And it was very unfortunate at the end in his rebuttal, and my phone got disconnected, and I got back on there, but he wouldn't accept my invitation. He just kept going over his time, so he broke the violations, the time that he's supposed to go for. He just went preaching on things that's not really related to the topic. Just the Quran is revealed, the Quran is revealed. No one is disagreeing with that. The point is the Quran the only revelation? That was the topic. So he didn't really address those things.
Yeah, and and he insulted you, and then during that preaching time, after you had gotten disconnected, he started to insult the audience, who were people who at least the people who accepted the hadith, and it was just painful to watch. And I was uncomfortable, and I also made that quite clear in my comments, but it was just like the rules weren't followed. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, there are points that I felt that he twisted. And he mentioned about how there were allegorical ayats, and we all accept that. And that's the thing. We're not denying the Quran, or we're not denying the ayat of the Quran, but he said that there are allegorical ayats, and that the people will want to go towards those allegorical ayats to prove the points. But then later on, he talked about the word zikr, and he said that it meant the Quran.
Yeah.
And that specific ayah. And there's no reason for us to assume that, especially when another place zikr means something else. I mean, I can cite off the top of my head Surah Al-Jumu'ah. I don't the specific ayat, but when you're called for on the day of prayer, or day of Friday, okay? It's the ninth verse of Surah Al-Jumu'ah, which is the 62nd surah, and it says when you're called to zikrullah, to the zikr of Allah. So why is why is that? I mean, does that mean that every place that you see the word zikr, it must mean Quran? And why should that be the case? I mean, that's very allegorical, and he was using that to build his case, but he was accusing those who accept hadith as following the allegorical ayat because they have a disease in their heart.
Yeah.
So
he was being hypocritical on that perspective.
Yeah, I don't know if he was doing it on purpose or not. I mean, I don't know his intentions at all. But it was not. I mean, his argument was shattered. He shattered his own argument. We can say that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we addressed most of the things that he mentions. And here in the Quran, basically, they don't really bring any specific clear ayah to support their point. which I highlighted. The way to really destroy my point is to specifically mention this ayah, which he didn't really bring up. So the debate was good. It was a good experience. Although he was respectful at the beginning, which I appreciate. Kareem was also respectful, and at the beginning it was good. But when my phone got disconnected, then that's when everything turned upside down. So,
Well, yeah,
and I asked him in the comment section also to invite me back, to invite me back, to invite me back. He didn't really. I don't know if he heard, if he seen it, or if he didn't see it, or what happened. The evidence is there in the comment sections.
Yeah, let me add in on that, because when you first left, he looked at the comments and he actually invited me to step up, and so did his Nazia was in there, and she told me to step up too, and I said no, this isn't my debate, and he was reading the comments and he wanted somebody else to step up, but I don't know after you came back in if if he saw that or whatnot, but Nazia was following the comments and she was so
I did.
It could have been reached to him somehow, and Kareem was next to him. What was he doing? I mean, was he not following the comments? I don't know. But it didn't seem like he was making the effort to do that. Especially, and you could. And I'm sorry, if I'm cutting you off, but he might be able to do that preaching for that time period. He had that first 15 minutes until his time period was up. But then after the time period was up, he didn't look again. That was the problem. I mean,
yeah.
He did call me up to join before, this time period had ended. Okay, but I just refused to do it. But then he didn't look again. And I want to emphasize that he did not look again to see if you had come back in. And the other people that were, who rejected hadith didn't say anything to him, at least in the video chat, publicly.
Yeah. I think I seen the brother Hatim say, hey, invite him back. He's back. That I didn't really see him responding. I even tagged him a couple of times and said, hey, brother, I sent the invitation. Please accept it so I can join in. I'm not sure if he's seen it. He was in a mode of preaching. So I guess, at that time he's in a zone. So he wasn't really paying attention. But alhamdulillah, he was good experience. At least he agreed with my position. The only potential objection is it wasn't for all mankind. So which I really shown that from the Quran, you can really argue that because you're basically saying that the Prophet ﷺ did not reveal the whole entire revelation, for everybody, didn't convey it. And another point that he wanted to stress, saying that Allah mentioned that he will preserve the zikr, and he restricting it, as you pointed out, which he haven't really justified why it's only limited to the Quran. But there's other passages also zikr used from Torah, in previous books. So why is it restricted to Quran, and why is it not every revelation that Allah sent down to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And also, we have to take into consideration here. You have to include the meaning, the wording, and the meanings. Those have to be preserved. Not only the text of the book, the meaning and the wording have to be preserved. That have to be taken into consideration. And if we went to the question and answer session, I asked specific question to him that I want him to really address. I think would have really put him on the spot, but we didn't really get that opportunity. Alhamdulillah. You want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, there was something that a brother did bring up. He didn't. Let me see the ayat. So, your opponent, Habeeb, he mentioned ayat 1746, which is from Surah Al-Isra, and it was. I'm going to read the English from the translation that you were also reading from. And we have placed over their hearts coverings, lest they understand it, and in their ears deafness. And when you mention your Lord alone in the Quran, they turn back in aversion. One of the brothers watching said that Habeeb mistranslated this ayat. I don't remember how he translated it, but so that was an issue that maybe if you want to speak about.
Yeah, absolutely. I did observe that, and I wrote it down because he said Quran alone, rather than say your law alone. In that translations, I think that's what the brother was alluding to. When it was my time, I was going to address it because I did write it down. When he said it, I said specifically in that ayat, no, that doesn't really support what he says. Yep. Absolutely.
Hello, Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa barakatuh.
It's me, Sharif.
Where are you hiding, brother?
Sorry, man. I only had a bit of a chance. I couldn't hear the end of the debate, but apparently you came off the debate. Is that what happened? And they didn't let you back on?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No problem.
I was on my phone, so.
Brother Sharif, we're actually making a video recording it and we're going to post it. You were the one who made the comment that he had translated the ayat incorrectly.
That's right, yeah. He did.
Yeah.
He did translate it incorrectly, yeah.
Okay.
So he translated it as, I think Abu Muhammad mentioned the point. He translated it as the Qur'an alone, where it says when you mention your Lord alone in the Qur'an. Yeah. So he mentioned that point to emphasize that it's the Qur'an alone. And that's the reason why I raised that point, because obviously that's completely changes the meaning of that verse of Qur'an.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Well, from the debate, what did you observe and what do you think, would be?
Generally, what I saw was that generally people who reject the Sunnah, they use a scattergun approach. They just quote loads and loads of ayat of Qur'an in order to give the impression that they know what they're talking about, and to confuse the person that they're talking to, or whatever audience that are looking. And I think this is what I sensed with regards to what these guys were doing, which is that they're just quoting loads and loads of ayat of Qur'an without actually understanding what they were reciting. Yeah, and not only the fact that sometimes we're even making fundamental mistakes in the recitation of the Qur'an. So even just to leave that to a side. But yeah, they're reciting loads of verses without really understanding what those verses imply, what the explanation is. Mentioned nice point. I like the point, the fact that they focus this point about that there are mutashabihat verses and that there are foundational verses, muhkam verses. Yeah, and that's true. And we use the muhkam verses in order to explain the mutashabihat. But he was trying to say that al-hikmah, the word al-hikmah is mutashabihat. Yeah, whereas al-hikmah is used throughout the whole of the Quran to refer to revelation. Yeah, not just in that particular verse, but in many verses. We sent down to Dawood alayhi salam or Sulaiman alayhi salam or the previous prophets. We use the word, we sent to them al-hikmah. Yeah, so
same thing with
so it's the word is referring to revelation, wisdom, al-hikmah. Yeah, and even the word sunnah is interesting, because the word sunnah, up until Imam Shafi'i's time, was not used to specify to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's a term that was coined by the scholars later on. Yeah, so the term sunnah just meant tradition or path, or tradition, and it could refer to any of the sunnah of any people, or it was generally used for the sunnah of the companions and the Prophet sallam. Imam Shafi'i, he restricted the use of that term, like the term hadith, isn't it? Hadith just means report or news. So later on, they restricted the term hadith or the word sunnah to refer specifically to those actions that the Prophet ﷺ did, what he said, and his consent, because they knew that this tradition of the Prophet ﷺ was something that had a revelatory power to it. Yeah. So this is an important point to note in regards to that. And also, there's loads of other verses like, "Oh, you who believe, obey Allah, obey the Messenger, and those in authority from amongst you." But those are just my thoughts anyway.
Okay, so I think this video is, it's gone over. It's done what we've intended to do. We can maybe I think we can post it, and if Brother Habeeb wants to comment on it, then he can. We can go from there. There's a lot that he can discuss from this, unless you want to add something, of course. This is your essentially your rebuttal.
Really, it was a good experience, and it was respectful, but we did see eye to eye in some points regarding to the Prophet receiving, which he agreed with my positions. The main contentions from his perspective is that revelation is not for all mankind, which I would have addressed after he allowed me to do it. And the question and answer session, I wish that we had the opportunity to discuss those, so so I can hear exactly what his main questions. And from the perspective, it looks like he does accept hadith, but not in terms of the law. When it comes to legislations, he doesn't accept hadith. He might accept that, okay, there was some history, the companion did this, the companion did that, so on and so forth. But as far from legislation, it doesn't seem to accept that, which we can discuss it, because the topic wasn't really whether, hadith is part of the, the Sharia or not. The main topic was, is the Quran the only revelation? And I proved him my point, and he agreed with it. So I feel like, the debate is properly done. And alhamdulillah, it was not just to prove him wrong, but to show that the truth is clear for anyone who want to search it, Alhamdulillah, I think we can end here.
Alhamdulillah. Then I'll let you end it, since you do a good job in that.
All right. Jazakallah khairan, man, for joining me.
Well, inshallah. So, thank you very much. I enjoyed it. I did learn something. That's all I have. So, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam.